Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to do a quick rundown of settings for the new 2021 LG C1. It's the replacement for last year's LG C10 or CX. So when I started this up, got the update right away. There's no new update since. Next, I'm going to have off the energy savings. That way it doesn't adjust the brightness based on ambient light. I also have the OLED screensaver stuff turned off for this because I also have a new C10 sitting next to it that is getting set up the same way for a direct comparison. See if the C1 is any brighter or not. Excuse my voice, I've been sick for a few days, so anyway, also turned off the AI service stuff. Anything that's going to adjust the picture other than settings that I want to change is getting turned off. Game optimizer, this is only for when switching to game mode and it detects that you're playing a video game. So I'm going to be using the Disney WoW disc, and I also can use the built-in Xbox calibration tool. I don't have a colorimeter right now, so this is going to be a more real-world setup of the television. It's not going to be, fully calibrated, which most people don't do. Most people will either just pick a mode and stick with it, or they'll pick a mode and make some minor changes to the basics, like the brightness and contrast, color settings and stuff, using something like the Disney WoW disc, or the DVE, Digital Video Essentials, has one. And then there's also, like Legum LCD is a website that's free. So anyway, so let me go into the brightness. Alright, yeah, using for video and movie content in SDR, using the expert bright space mode, for game optimizer mode for gaming, obviously, and then for HDR, same thing, those two modes, but they separate them when you send an HDR source, and you can set them differently. Alright, so anyway, so back to brightness. So with this, I have the OLED brightness, which is your backlight control pretty much, and I have that at 100 so that the C10 can also be at 100 and compare brightness directly. So I've already gone through and done all of this. Let me change the ISO setting real quick. So even maxed out, the camera's not going to pick this up very well, but the 0% lines should be all black. You shouldn't see anything. 1% onward, you should see little squares, and the 1% square should be very hard to see, which is how it is currently. And sorry, I'm on the contrast. I need to be on brightness. So brightness at 56. I can make out faint squares at 1% and no squares at 0. So that's where that one needs to be. Then let me go to the contrast pattern. Which is pretty much the same thing, just the opposite. Now it's white. I gotta turn the ISO down for this. Again, you probably won't really see it that well, but I can see the faint squares at -1%, and no squares at 0%. So there's no clipping, and the contrast is as high as it can go without clipping. Then, last thing I'm going to use this disc for is color settings, but before I get there, let me go through the rest of this. So I have dynamic contrast turned off, peak brightness turned off. That will be set to high for HDR modes. Gamma, BT 1886 or 2.4, same thing for OLEDs. 2.2 if you need it to be brighter for during the daytime. Black level, leave it auto, and motion eye care, turn that off. Alright, so now into the color settings. So last year on the C10, under color gamut, there was wide, enhanced, and auto. Now it's auto detect or native. And typically it's recommended that you use auto, but I'll show you why I'm not. Let me reset this real quick so that it's back to out of the box. It would be at 50, 0. I think it was native out of the box, but if you change it to auto, you look through here, this blue filter, and all the bars are supposed to be equally blue. And when it's in auto detect, you go up to color depth. I have to make major adjustments to color depth, like up to 60 or 61 to get it correct. And I've also noticed when using auto that even doing that there's a very strong red push and oversaturation, and like things that should be orange are red, and everything just has a red tint to it. So I don't know if there is an issue with auto detect right now, or if that's just the color science, whatever, I don't know. If you had a colorimeter and more tools, or do a Kalman setup or whatever, maybe you could work that out. But for real world usage and just easy, switch it to native, and everything is a lot closer just out of the box. So for color, all I did was pushed it up to 52 when on native, and that's it. Everything is matched up how it should be. So unless something changes, that's what I would recommend. But this is only for SDR. In HDR mode, then yes, use auto so that it'll switch to the Rec 2020 color when given that source. So now we'll go to fine tune. This is color upgrade. It's just something to oversaturate your colors. Just leave it off. And then for white balance, accurate is warm 50. For a lot of you, that's going to look too warm. You're probably used to cooler white balance temperatures. If you just put it to warm 50 and leave it there the next day or two, you're going to be used to it, and anything less is going to seem bluish. It's just you got to get used to it to realize that that's what white should be. Then moving on to clarity real quick. Sharpness, keep it 0 so there's no edge enhancement, and then have all these filters turned off. And then true motion, that's your soap opera effect, and motion smoothing, that's personal preference. I like it off. So, and then you can apply this to all inputs. Filmmaker mode is if it detects a movie that supports Filmmaker mode, it'll automatically switch to it. But as far as I know, there isn't anything with that yet, and I would rather just have it stay the way that I'm setting it up. And then reduce blue light is if your eyes are sensitive to blue light, it'll reduce the blueness, but definitely recommend keeping that off. And then if you need to set up any audio equipment, using ARC or eARC, you just come here, sound out, and then, so because I'm using ARC, you use wired speaker. I think it was HDMI 2 is the ARC one. Go back, advanced settings, and then down here you can enable eARC and then pass through so that you can get your DTS HD and Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, etc. pass through. And that's it for the settings. Now I have, like I said, the C10 right there. I've already gone through and set it up appropriately, and I gotta say that they are very, very similar. I'm going to be doing a comparison video after this one, but I just wanted to do this real quick for the settings, an initial setup that's really easy for anyone to do and get their television, 95% of the way there, without having to spend a bunch of money on extra tools or a professional calibrator. So, I hope this helped you, and have a good one.